the way that attack happened on October 7th would have required a lot of communication and cooperation, collaboration between multiple different agencies in Israel. Mossad is charged with external intelligence, meaning intelligence coming in from outside of Israel. Shin Bet is in charge of protecting the land of Israel. Shin Bet's their internal service. It's almost like FBI and CIA. But then it happened on the border, which means that there's like a border control element, and their border patrol element in Israel is closely tied to their defense force, IDF. So you basically have three different organizations that all have to collect information and communicate and disseminate that information with each other in order to identify a threat, and then they all have to collaborate to protect and prevent against that threat. So what happened on October 7th isn't a failure of one agency. It's a failure of multiple agencies. And since the October 7th attack, what we've learned is that there were members of the IDF who saw suspicious activity and reported it up the chain. And then the people up the chain within that agency had differing opinions about whether or not it should be disseminated to Mossad or Shin Bet, or the credibility of the reports at all. Shin Bet had reports that they escalated up the chain. Mossad had reports that they escalated up the chain. But at the bureaucratic level, the communication didn't happen. And if anything, in my opinion, that is what makes October 7th similar to 9/11. It was a failure of communication between multiple agencies that resulted in a tragic attack.
Yeah, here we had the CIA and FBI famously going at it and not exchanging info.
Which led to the development, the whole creation of the Director of National Intelligence, the whole creation of TSA, the whole creation of Homeland Security. All of that
government agencies.
Because
love that.
The two couldn't talk, so we need three more to make sure they talk.
Throw another letter in the alphabet.
Could you imagine? That's like saying like a husband and a wife can't talk, so what we need is more spouses.
That's right.
It's like, you know what I really need is I need another husband and two more wives to be part of this. And that's gonna improve our communication.
Yo, fuck the husband, but we'll take a couple more wives. That's it. Gotta have some options, baby. But I don't know, that day has been relitigated because of what has happened politically and then on a war aspect afterwards. And so you have this very, very strong sentiment around the world where it's much more like, yo, fuck Netanyahu and what's going on here, because obviously terrorist attack, very bad. Obviously there has to be defense or something like that for that problem not to exist. But people get hung up on, things Netanyahu said in the past. Like in 2019, he said in the Knesset, like, if you don't want a two-state solution, you have to be okay with funding Hamas. Does that mean Israel was funding Hamas? Not necessarily. You don't know that. But when you have the leader of the party saying that, it's like, are you playing two sides against the middle here to get what you want? And, because something bad will happen if you do that. No matter how you're getting the money there, hidden or not, doesn't really matter. And there seems to be an indiscriminate, and unfortunately this does happen in war all the time, we've seen it, but there's an indiscriminate effect on human life that we're seeing in Gaza. And I say that with the asterisk that, like, you can't believe every number that comes out. There's propaganda on both sides. Right. When I see the death count, like I looked at the death count this morning, I'm like, okay, it's probably not that. But it's not good. There's rockets being fired everywhere. The images are the images when you look at it from a drone. Like, yes, there's cities that are leveled. I get it. War is ugly. But, like, where does it end?
I think that's the $1 million question. I don't see this conflict ending soon. I see it escalating before it ends. I also don't necessarily think I don't think that Netanyahu is going to get his one-state solution. If anything,
I agree.
What's tough is this is a decision that multiple countries have to make, because supporting Palestine and establishing a two-state solution and making it sustainable is never going to come from just Israel. And because the United States needs Israel to be happy with the United States, it's not going to be led by the United States either. We'll sit back in a nice, like, velveteen chair and say, we think there should be a two-state solution, but we're not going to get off of our asses and go in there and help make it happen. because there's no benefit to us. There's a benefit to us if Israel is stable. There's a benefit to us if Israel is strong. There's a benefit to us if Israel has, an if they have an economy that is pro-U.S. and continues to buy U.S. weapons. We don't need a second Palestinian state to have all those things happen. So we'll sit here and we'll preach, but we're not going to take action. The place where the action has to happen is in the Middle East itself. It's in all of the Muslim nations. And if you start to have a banding of Muslim nations together to support it, that could move the United States, because now we have larger interests at stake. If Saudi gets involved, if UAE gets involved, if Jordan gets involved, if Egypt gets involved, now the United States can't sit on their ass anymore. Even more so if we start seeing China or Russia or Iran or, the BRICS nations, if we see them start to lead the development of a two-state solution, then you'll see the United States jump the fuck out of their seats and be like, oh no, we're here to help too. Right? Let us keep our influence in this region. So the way it ends, I don't know. I will say this. Netanyahu is the one leader in the world right now who's at the largest likelihood of being unseated from within. All the talk about Putin was never really valid. The idea that Putin's cronies were somehow going to take him out or replace him or overrun him from inside, we've seen now how untrue that was. Netanyahu and the democratic process itself, he stands a real risk of actually being voted out, vetoed out, pulled out, kicked out, something. I don't think he's going to be assassinated from within, but he is a strong-arm leader right now, and Israel has to decide whether they want a strong-arm leader. And they have plenty of alternates, like plenty of opposition leaders to choose from who can step up and take Netanyahu's place. And the United States doesn't want to see an authoritarian Israel. They want to see an Israel that is pro-U.S. And an Israel that's pro-U.S. is an Israel that relies on the United States.
Yes.
So the United States is going to back somebody in a race against Netanyahu. It's just a matter of when.